Oliver Grace, a renowned architect with a passion for restoring old buildings, had always believed that every structure held a story. Stories of families, laughter, and lives lived within its walls. For him, restoring a house wasn't just about architecture, it was about reviving memories and giving them a second chance. Over the years, Oliver had gained recognition for his ability to merge modernity with nostalgia, leaving behind a legacy of restored beauty wherever he went. On a brisk autumn morning, Oliver returned to the small town where he had spent his childhood. As he drove along the familiar roads, memories of simpler times filled his mind. Suddenly, a bend in the road brought him face to face with Gracewood Manor, an abandoned Victorian mansion perched atop a hill. The sight of the grand yet forlorn structure, with its moss-covered roof and dusty windows, stirred something deep within him. A faded for sale sign dangled from the rusted iron gate, bearing the contact details of the local government. Oliver pulled over, his gaze fixed on the mansion. He recalled the stories surrounding the Grace family, once the wealthiest in town. Though years of neglect had stripped the mansion of its splendor, Oliver saw potential. A chance to not only restore the building, but also revive its spirit. Determined to explore Gracewood Manor, Oliver parked his car and walked through the creaking iron gate. The cracked stone path led him to the grand front door, its ornate carvings barely visible beneath layers of grime. A sense of nostalgia mixed with curiosity filled him as he considered the possibilities of bringing the place back to life. After contacting the local government, Oliver attended a property auction just days later. To his surprise, there were no competing bidders, and he acquired the mansion for far less than he had anticipated. With the deed in hand, Oliver felt a surge of excitement. This was his chance to transform the crumbling house into a masterpiece. A week later, as he returned to inspect the property in detail, Oliver stepped inside Gracewood Manor, flashlight in hand. The interior was just as he had expected, dim, dusty, and eerily silent. Portraits of the Grace family hung crooked on the walls, their subjects staring out from beneath a veil of cobwebs. But what he wasn't expecting was the sound of soft laughter echoing from upstairs. Startled, Oliver froze. This house was supposed to have been abandoned for years. Gripping his flashlight tightly, he followed the faint giggles up the creaking staircase and down a dimly lit hallway. At the end of the corridor, he pushed open a partially ajar door to reveal an unexpected sight. A young woman with long auburn hair sitting beside a boy of about 5 years old. The two looked up at him in surprise, their modest meal of canned food spread across a small, battered table. "I'm sorry," the woman said quickly, her voice trembling as she pulled the boy closer to her protectively. "We didn't mean to trespass, we just had nowhere else to go." Oliver froze, the flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. He wasn't sure what he had expected, but certainly not this. A frightened mother and her child seeking refuge. Slowly, his surprise gave way to curiosity, and then compassion. "I wasn't expecting to find anyone here," he said softly, lowering the flashlight to ease their fear. The woman introduced herself as Sarah and the boy as her son Liam. She explained how they had lost their home after a fire and had been living in the mansion for several months. Despite the dilapidation, the corner they occupied was tidy, with a blanket-covered bed and a few toys neatly arranged. After a moment of thought, Oliver made a decision. "You can stay," he said, his voice steady, "but on one condition. You'll help me clean and prepare this place for renovation." Relieved, Sarah nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. With Sarah and Liam now part of the picture, Oliver began the meticulous task of planning the restoration of Gracewood Manor. Early mornings were spent cleaning out debris, sorting through old furniture, and documenting what could be salvaged. While Oliver handled the structural details, Sarah took charge of cleaning and organizing the livable areas, and Liam contributed in his own small ways, gathering fallen leaves or sweeping dust with a tiny broom. As the weeks passed, the once lifeless mansion began to regain some of its former charm. The sound of laughter, mostly Liam's, echoed through the hallways, transforming the once eerie silence into something warm and alive. Sarah often brought Oliver tea during his long hours of sketching design plans, and she even cooked simple meals for the three of them, which they shared by the fireplace. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of the library, Oliver's gaze caught something odd. A loose brick in the fireplace, slightly out of place. Intrigued, he crouched down and pressed it gently. To his surprise, the brick slid inward with a soft click, revealing a dark cavity. He reached inside, his fingers brushing against something solid, the faint outline of an old wooden box covered in layers of dust. "Sarah!" he called out, his voice echoing with excitement. Sarah hurried over, brushing her hands on her apron. "What is it?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Help me get this out," Oliver replied, carefully reaching into the cavity. Together, they extracted the dusty wooden box. Its hinges were rusted, and the surface was worn with age. Oliver pried it open, revealing a bundle of letters tied with a faded silk ribbon. Beneath the letters lay an old, hand-drawn map of the mansion, with certain areas marked with red X's. "Looks like the Grace family had some secrets," Oliver said, flipping through the delicate pages. Sarah picked up one of the letters and read aloud. "The true treasure lies not in gold, but in the hope it can bring to others. To whoever finds this, use it wisely to restore what has been lost." They exchanged a glance, both feeling the weight of the words. Over the following days, they examined every room marked on the map, uncovering small stashes of antique coins, jewelry, and even an old ledger detailing charitable contributions made by the Grace family. But the most intriguing find was an iron safe hidden behind a false wall in the basement. "It's locked," Oliver muttered, inspecting the heavy door. "We'll need to figure out how to open it," Sarah replied, her excitement tempered by curiosity. And so began their search for the code that would unlock not just the safe, but perhaps the future of Gracewood Manor itself. The discovery of the iron safe in the basement consumed Oliver's thoughts. Every evening, after Liam had gone to bed, he and Sarah pored over the letters and map, searching for clues to unlock it. The words of Robert Grace, the former owner, lingered in their minds. "Use it wisely to restore what has been lost." After days of trial and error, Oliver turned the dial one final time, his hands trembling with anticipation. With a loud click, the safe unlocked. For a moment he hesitated, his breath catching as he prepared to uncover what had been hidden for decades. With a deep breath, Oliver turned the wheel and the safe door creaked open. Inside were bundles of cash, gold bars, and valuable documents, including shares in a now thriving local company. Sarah gasped at the sight. "This could change everything," she whispered. Oliver nodded, overwhelmed by the sheer value of what they had found. The sum could easily fund the restoration of the mansion and more. But amidst the treasure was a single envelope marked with the words, "For the future of the town." Inside the envelope was a letter from Robert Grace. "This is not just wealth, it is a responsibility. I have left this for the betterment of our community, to build schools, parks, and hospitals for those who need them. My hope is that whoever finds it will honor this purpose." Oliver sat in silence, the letter trembling slightly in his hands. As he read Robert's words again, his heart sank under the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just wealth, it was a legacy. The vision of children laughing in a park, families thriving in a community center, and the once-forgotten mansion bustling with life played vividly in his mind. It was a vision he couldn't ignore. The words of Robert Grace seemed to echo in his mind. "Use it wisely to restore what has been lost." He had bought the mansion with a simple goal, profit. But now, as he stared at the treasure before him, he felt the crushing weight of responsibility. This wasn't just about bricks and mortar anymore. It was about people, hope, and legacy. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked gently, sensing his conflict. Oliver looked at her, then at Liam, who was playing with his toy cars near the fireplace. "I could keep this for myself," he said slowly, "but it's not just mine to take. Robert left this to help others, and maybe that's what I need to do." Sarah smiled softly, her eyes filled with admiration. "You're right. This is an opportunity to make a difference, not just for this house, but for everyone in the town." Oliver nodded, his resolve strengthening. "We'll use this treasure for the town. A park, a school, and maybe even a small clinic. It's time to give back." As he spoke, Liam looked up, grinning. "A park? Can I help build it?" Oliver laughed, ruffling Liam's hair. "You're already helping, buddy." With that decision, Oliver felt a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever experienced. The day after Oliver made his decision, he contacted local leaders to share the news. Initially skeptical, the townspeople were soon overwhelmed with gratitude when Oliver unveiled Robert Grace's letter and his plans to use the treasure to revive the community. Work began swiftly. Oliver allocated funds to restore the abandoned lot in the town center into a beautiful park, complete with walking paths, playgrounds, and gardens. He also directed money toward renovating the old school, upgrading classrooms with modern amenities, and building a small clinic to serve the town's needs. Sarah took on the role of project manager, coordinating with contractors, architects, and town officials. Her organizational skills and dedication proved invaluable, and her genuine warmth inspired the workers to give their best. Meanwhile, Liam became the unofficial mascot of the restoration efforts. His cheerful energy lifted spirits on even the most challenging days. He often accompanied Oliver to the construction sites, his laughter echoing across the town as he played among the piles of wood and bricks. One evening, as Sarah and Oliver stood together in what would soon become the town's new park, Oliver glanced at her with admiration. "I don't think I could have done this without you," he said. Sarah smiled. "You could have, but it's been an honor to be part of something this meaningful." Over the months, Gracewood Manor became a symbol of hope. The park was completed first, and on the opening day, the town came alive. Children's laughter filled the air as they raced to the swings and slides, their joy uncontainable. Parents, many with tears in their eyes, watched their kids play for the first time in years. Under the shade of newly planted trees, families spread picnic blankets, their faces lit with smiles that hadn't been seen in far too long. It was more than a park. It was a symbol of hope reborn. Oliver watched it all with a deep sense of fulfillment. "Amazing, isn't it?" Sarah said, standing beside him. "It is," Oliver replied, his voice filled with pride. "But this is just the beginning." The renovated school and clinic followed soon after, each project improving the lives of the townspeople in tangible ways. Families who had considered leaving the struggling town now decided to stay, hopeful for the brighter future these changes promised. The impact wasn't just on the community, it was personal for Oliver too. Gracewood Manor, once a crumbling relic, had become a hub of life and connection. Sarah and Liam brought a warmth to the house that made it feel like home for the first time. One late afternoon, as Oliver watched Liam playing with other children in the park, Sarah joined him on the bench. "You've done so much for this town," she said. Oliver shook his head. "We've done it together. This was never about me. It was about what we could do for everyone." Sarah smiled softly. "I think Robert Grace would be proud of you." Oliver nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. "I hope so." With each passing day, Gracewood Manor's legacy grew, not just as a restored mansion, but as the heart of a thriving, hopeful community. Months after the completion of the town projects, Gracewood Manor was fully restored. Its once crumbling walls now stood strong, adorned with fresh paint and intricate Victorian details that highlighted its historical beauty. The gardens, once overrun with weeds, bloomed with vibrant flowers planted by Sarah and Liam. One golden afternoon, Oliver asked Sarah to join him in the back garden, where they had spent countless evenings together during the restoration. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the house as Oliver led her to the very spot where they had first discussed the treasure. "Sarah," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "do you remember the day we found the safe in the library?" Sarah nodded, her lips curving into a soft smile. "How could I forget? That day changed everything." Oliver looked at her, his gaze full of gratitude and affection. "It wasn't just the treasure that changed things. It was you and Liam. Before you came into my life, this house was just another project, another building to fix and sell. But now, it's so much more." Reaching into his pocket, Oliver pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a sparkling engagement ring. "Sarah, you and Liam gave me something I didn't know I was missing, a family. I don't want to let that go. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she gasped softly. "Oliver, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he said, his voice unwavering. From a short distance, Liam, who had been quietly watching, cheered excitedly. "Say yes, Mom, I want Oliver to be my dad." Sarah laughed through her tears, crouching to embrace Liam. Then she turned to Oliver, her smile radiant. "Yes, I will." The news of their engagement spread quickly through the town, and 3 months later, they married in a simple yet beautiful ceremony held in the garden of Gracewood Manor. Under the floral arch in the garden of Gracewood Manor, the townspeople gathered, their faces glowing with joy. As Sarah walked down the petal-strewn aisle, Liam raced ahead, holding the rings with a proud grin. When Oliver and Sarah exchanged vows, the crowd erupted into applause, their cheers carrying across the town. This wasn't just a wedding. It was the celebration of a love story that had restored not only a house, but the very heart of their community. As Oliver, Sarah, and Liam stood together under the floral arch, they knew this was not just the beginning of a new chapter, but the creation of a true home and family. As the seasons changed and life in the town flourished, Gracewood Manor stood as a testament to love, hope, and community. What had once been a decaying relic of the past was now a vibrant symbol of renewal. Children laughed in the park, families gathered in the library, and the clinic provided care to those who needed it. For Oliver, the journey had been transformative. Sitting on the balcony of Gracewood Manor one quiet evening, he watched Liam play in the garden below, while Sarah tended to her flowers. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it a sense of peace. "This house isn't just a project anymore," Oliver murmured as Sarah joined him. "It's become something much bigger. A home, not just for us, but for everyone in this town." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder, her smile warm. "And it all started with you. You took a chance on this place, and now it's changed so many lives." Oliver nodded thoughtfully. "But it wasn't just me. It was all of us. You, Liam, the people in this town. Together, we made something truly special." He thought back to Robert Grace's letter and the treasure they had uncovered. The true value of that wealth had never been in its monetary worth, but in the good it could bring to others. Oliver now understood that treasure wasn't about gold or riches. It was about the connections we build and the lives we touch. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the town in hues of gold and amber, Oliver stood on the balcony of Gracewood Manor, his heart full. Below, he could see Liam chasing fireflies in the garden, his laughter ringing through the air. Beside him, Sarah leaned gently against his shoulder, her smile as warm as the setting sun. In that moment, Oliver knew this was the greatest treasure of all. He had found the greatest treasure of all, a family, a community, and a purpose. Sometimes the most valuable things in life aren't what we own, but the love and kindness we share.